Now today, the charity Women in Sport will be celebrating its 40th anniversary with a big conference in central London. And I'm delighted to say we're joined by the Chief Executive of the organisation, Stephanie Hilborne, and the actor Jim Carter, perhaps best known as Mr. Carson in Downton Abbey. Good morning to you both. First of all, today's a celebration, but also a chance to discuss important issues, Stephanie. Why is it such an important landmark, and can you tell us how the organisation began way back in 1984?
Well, it's just incredible to think of these women upon whose shoulders we now stand. These women, and actually some men, who founded the organisation back in 1984. At the time, women were only just allowed to run the marathon, were not allowed to take part in a lot of Olympic events. It was a really not a good time. And 40 years of epic work has gone in by them and others across the system to get to the point where women and girls are more included in sport, but we are not there yet. And today is to call on our men as allies to say we've got to take the next steps forward. We need more equal leadership in sport. We need more women leading. We need more equal investment in women and girls sport. And we need equal recognition. And finally, we need to protect women and girls properly in sport with the right policies and regulations. So we need to just do that next bit faster, I think, because we don't want 40 years before we're equal.
Right, Jim, many people will be wondering how and why you're involved. Can you tell us more and what's happening there today?
Well, I'm involved because I love sport and it should be open to everybody. I think that's a no-brainer. My mother loves sport, my daughter loves sport. My wife is very funny but doesn't understand sport at all. But why shouldn't it be open to anyone? If anyone can answer that question, I'll give them a fiver. It should be open to everyone. I support it because it's just a natural human right and that everyone should be allowed to join in the joy of sport, the camaraderie, not just team sports or play for the Lionesses, to be allowed to go to the gym, to exercise, to jog without harassment, without any let or hinder. It should be open to everybody. It draws us together as people, as a community, and it's something I'm very, very happy to support. It just seems a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, Stephanie, how do you assess the progress so far in 40 years? What would you say have been the biggest successes?
I think one of the really big successes is we are finally seeing women's team sport on TV. When I was a little girl, I was obsessed with team sport. I never saw women ever playing it. And so if I couldn't win Wimbledon or I couldn't go to the Olympics, I had no dream to have. What the successes are is we're seeing in the last 5 years in particular a shift in our survey we do annually of the dream rates of girls in sport, and we're seeing a little bit of an upward tick. We're doing another one soon and we're hopeful there's going to be a further rise, but now girls who already love sport are dreaming at far higher rates thanks to the just letting those sports open and giving them some recognition. So that's got to be one of the big step forwards, actually.
And didn't everybody get a huge lift from the Lionesses' success in the Euros? Hopefully everybody's getting behind the Red Roses in the rugby, who are now on a 30-match winning streak, and it's the Women's Rugby World Cup next year. We're going to see stadiums full, 50,000 people supporting women's rugby. It's huge on television. It really feels like we're on the cusp of a real upswing, and this conference today is going to motivate a lot of people to carry on that momentum.
Yeah, fantastic. A question for both of you. What more can be done, do you think, for gender equality and visibility? And what do you think needs to change urgently? Stephanie, I'll start with you.
Well, we are promoting the idea that the big sports start to look at their budgeting and see where their finances are going, where it's landing in the end, with boys, with girls, with men, with women, so that we can get to a point where the actual investment on the ground is equal and the opportunities for girls are equal to boys. And we don't want boys to have less opportunities. We know how important sport is for everyone. We love that boys and men are getting those chances, but putting the money down the system is vital. We know we depend heavily on a massive volunteer workforce out there. We need more coaches who are women because we just have a huge deficit of female coaches. We know girls thrive when they have a female coach. And we need to, as a whole society, just stop stereotyping our kids from very, very young. Because what we also know from our research is that we are still doing this desperately. We're telling little tiny girls to be careful all the time and irrationally, and we're not encouraging them to learn to throw and kick and hit a ball like we are our little boys who we think's whole life depends on being good at football. So there's big societal shifts, there's system shifts within the sports sector, and you know, all of that will have to come together if we're going to really get across the line and realise for every girl and woman in this country the opportunities that Jim talks about, because it's fabulous, this shift, but we've got to make sure on the ground the opportunities are there.
And it's really important now, I mean, post-COVID, when so many people got isolated, got locked into their screens and at home, to get back into the team sports, into the community of sport. I mean, as a volunteer, you know, or as a participant, get back in there and enjoy that sense of community, which carries us all through. And I think is so, so important now at this moment. And we've got an opportunity today, as I say, to sort of really help advance that and accelerate the rate of change.
Altogether, it's about joy. And
Joy.
Jim mentioned it before. Our girls are less happy than they've ever been. The girl guiding stats are heartbreaking. This is just simply wrong. We need to get everyone away from the screens and just into the joy of physical activity and sport.
Jim, you're surrounded by successful women at home, aren't you? Your wife, Imelda Staunton, has been nominated at the Oscars and for several Golden Globes. Your daughter, Bessie, has been a star on Bridgerton on Netflix. Is gender equality more advanced on the big screen, or do you think sport has made more progress?
I think I'm the wrong person to ask. I'm a man. I know there's a lot of efforts on the big screen to make gender equality, you know, to improve it. And there's the initiative 50-50, which every script is examined to make sure, does that part have to be played by a man, can it be played by a woman, to look at the diversity, and a lot of work is being done in that respect. I think it's just a slow-moving process, but the process is in place. I think it's a huge thing that the National Theatre from next year on is going to be run by a woman. The inspirational Indu Ruba Singham is going to be running one of our major national institutions. But I think, you know, our game is a team game, a bit like sport, you know. I don't think we're there, but we're heading in there. We know what we've got to do, and I think the will is there to change. And let's hope we can speed that change so that everybody feels welcome, everybody gets a fair shout.
Jim, just one more for you. You did speak to us on Sky Sports News 8 years ago. I'm sure you'll remember. Probably on your showreel somewhere, is it?
Of course. Yeah.
When you were chair of Hampstead Cricket Club.
Yeah, 8 years ago and 3 days, yeah.
We've seen cricket change radically for women in international cricket, as well as competitions like the 100, for example. But there's also been criticism from the ICEC report in 2023 that cricket was sexist and needs reform. How do you assess the cricketing landscape for girls and women?
I think that report, chaired by Baroness Butt, was extremely valid and needed. It was really tough, but we needed to hear that, because we need to work much harder in cricket, the diversity and the inclusion, the equality. And the ECB, to be fair, took their time to examine that report, to look at it very carefully and to respond to it. And we are responding. I mean, I'm still the president at Hampstead Cricket Club, an amateur cricket club, and we're doing everything we can to include young girls, the women's sports team. We now run 2 women's teams, and we're doing everything we can to give that additional support, because the men have got all the support in place, but the women, you know, they need additional support, because they also carry, don't forget, often the major burden of domestic house chores and stuff like that. They don't have the disposable income, so we need to help that. The ECB are supporting that, and I want to see an explosion of cricket, not just at the top level with the 100, with people watching it, but people joining in. Get into your local club, join in, and I'd love to see if we can do anything. If there's anyone out there who could be a female coach, as Steph said, we need female coaches as someone, you know, if you can see it, you can be it. Follow up on the work of Ebony Rainford-Brent down at the Oval with her ACE programme, which is reaching out to thousands of children. We need to, again, gallop along with that, and next season, let's hope we see a lot more women and girls involved.
Jim, Stephanie, thank you so much for your time this morning on Sky Sports News.